Have you heard the news? It's getting lots of rave reviews. A good time is waiting just for you at Sister Spokesman. Yeah, won't you send the facts? Drop on by, grab a drink and relax.
Okay, so to my immediate right, I have Nancy Ellis. She's a licensed therapist at Hope and Healing Clinic. In the middle, we have Marquise Armstrong. He is the founder of the Hope and Healing Clinic. And then to my far right is Nicole Pillow. She is a writer, public speaker, and certified personal empowerment coach. Let's give them all a round of applause this afternoon. A little bit about, I always like to introduce the panel and say, why would I need to listen to you? What is it that gives you the expertise to help me? So if you can start us off with that, then I'll take it from there.
I would say, why would you want to listen to me? That's a good question. Because when I look out in the audience, I see people who have helped me along the way and have mentored me and have been a part of my life, and I feel almost like I need to go sit down and let y'all come up here. But because of you, I have learned and I have grown. And so I feel that God has called me through the life circumstances that I've been through, to share, to help other people along the way.
First, before I talk about me, I want to say thank you, Tracy, for having Sister Spokesman, for inviting me into this space. Thank you, Nicole, for reaching out. I want to thank my wife, my mother, my sisters, my team, for all attending, and all of you beautiful ladies who are here. Why should you listen to me? I'm extremely humble with that. So my first response is, I don't know. But what I will say is that, much like what Nancy said, I've had so much poured into me from my family and from my community. And I would say this would be an opportunity for me to give back, to share back all of the things that have been poured into me, the experiences that I've had, and what we do at our agency.
Good afternoon. Hi, ladies, gentlemen. So why would you want to listen to me? So when we hear the word expert, I think we initially think has all the answers. One of the things I would say, I think initially when I'm given a platform or given the opportunity to speak, there's an initial draw that's about where I've been or what I've done. I've traveled. I've worked for Ebony Magazine for several years as a fashion commentator. I've been up and close and in person with what beauty is supposed to look like and be. I have traveled the world as an inspirational speaker, a transformational coach, and I could go on with that, but really what I've learned as to why I'd say listen to me is none of this came without going through the fire. And there's times when I even felt I'm ready to share what I've been given, the wisdom that I've received, and I get the when the world says not quite yet, it's not quite time, the Spirit says hold on, we got some more work to do. And the got some more work to do part is the piece that I believe gives me the authority to speak into your life.
But let me start off by saying, Nicole, since you are very much involved with the beauty industry and kind of really the beauty of the women, I don't feel beautiful inside. So I'm ugly in terms of my responses, my reactions, and I don't care how much makeup I have on, it doesn't make me pretty. What do I do to help that out?
Ooh, I just get filled when I hear that question. Oh, we went right on in. So initially what I will say is that I think most of us have had those days where we don't feel necessarily beautiful. And if you work in the standard of society and what society is considered beautiful, we're really at a deficit on occasions, if that makes sense. So one of the things that I would share that I feel is where loving thyself comes into the picture is developing the ability to acknowledge and affirm what is good, true, and right about who you are. And that takes some digging. It takes being able to go within and do some soul searching for what is good, true, and right about who you are. And I think that ultimately, even before you get into any specifics, one thing that you can take home with you today is that you have a birthright that tells you that you are important, you are valuable, and you are lovable. This is something that you were given at birth. Do any of you have babies, children, or have had? Let me see hands in the air if you've had them. Okay, so if you look into the face of your child as they were born, did they have to earn the right to be lovable? Did they have to earn the right to be valuable? No. In fact, there's nothing they could do to earn it. It's part of their birthright. And I think that as women and men as well, we can get separated from that birthright over time. You know, hits, life, other things are spoken over us, labels are put on us, and we can easily forget the fact that, wait a minute, I have a birthright that was given to me from day one, from conception. So when we can develop the ability to tap into that, and so what I mean is, instead of waiting for somebody to come along and say, "Oh, you're beautiful," or "Oh, you're a gorgeous woman or a handsome man," what I say is we've got to get really good at practicing affirming it within ourselves. And I would say, to your point, Tracy, that we have to affirm it in a way that happens by faith even before we believe it. There are times that we have to put some, we got to go, okay, you know, I may not feel it today, but I know that the core of who I am, that my core value is that I'm important, I'm valuable, I'm lovable, and even on days I don't feel like it, I can still choose to affirm it. I don't have to wait for somebody else to do that for us. And I think part of what we can do is end up spending many days waiting to be affirmed from an external space or external opinion, and we're called to do that for ourselves. And that's not something you can put on in the morning. There is no lipstick shade that tells us we're important and valuable and lovable. That is something that comes from your internal knowing of who you are as a birthright. So I say again, what the skill is, or what you can work towards tangibly, is getting good at practicing it. Put it in the mirror. Put it where you come across important, valuable, lovable. It's basic, and then it will grow from there. Then you can start to say, and by the way, I also have a passion around art, or I'm artistic. You can start to affirm other things that are good, true, and right about you, but that's home base.
So how do I declutter and get rid of the stress and drama so that I can then get to where Nicole just was?
That's a good question. You know, when you first asked that question, the first thing that came to mind was, who told you that? No, seriously, who told you that you were ugly? And you know, we live in a society where there is a standard for what is beautiful and what is not beautiful. If you look at the billboards, you know, I'm a child of the 60s and 70s, and I remember specifically seeing a certain look this is what beautiful is. And so as kids, we went through that time where they were integrating the schools, going from the inner city, going out to the suburbs. We didn't see people that looked like us. So we started straightening our hair because we were embarrassed. And because the standard was, white, beautiful, long hair, straight nose, all this kind of stuff. And so we just, you have to be aware of the media images of what is beautiful. We bought into it. And I look at young girls nowadays, I see, the makeup industry, you think about it, the amount of money that girls spend on looking cute and being beautiful, and we all fall into that. And I think Alicia Keys she kind of stepped away from that and doing the makeup and everything. But what would it be like if I just one day decided I'm not wearing none of that stuff? I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna be who I am, and without it. So there's a struggle, because in my head I've already believed and felt that the only way for me to be beautiful is to dress up and to cover up. All right. So it's in our heads. Some of us have been told by adults, by parents, "You ugly." We have heard that. Or a man that we were with, if you just do this and fix this about you, you'd be better. You look, So you have to go back and think, where did those messages come from? Where did that come from? I was in a relationship with I was married for 23 years, and my husband always talked about my face. He always said, you know, you need to do something with this, or you need to do something with that back there. And it was like, you know, and I never heard that before. I didn't grow up thinking like that, but being in that relationship, that was his poison that came to me. And nobody had ever told me that before. So for years, been years of just overcoming those messages that you need to get plastic surgery, you need to fix this, you need to fix. Lord have mercy. Oh, okay, ugly inside, that's another thing. Because that's something that we all have to work on. That we all have that propensity to be like that. You know, one of the things about mindfulness that I like is being able to sit down with myself and say, what is about me? Do I repel people? Are people disgusted when they're in my presence? So, you know, just that introspection, and to be able to say, you know, is there something about me that's offensive to people? And to really sit with it. But I think a lot of times we don't do that. And, you know, sometimes we are ugly inside, and sometimes we're not. So you need to discern, you know, is this something too that somebody else is labeling me with or putting on me? Yeah. Or is it really something that's inside me that needs to be fixed, that needs to be changed? Okay. Yeah.
Was talking to Tracy, and I said to her, when Nicole first called me about Sister Spokesman, a panel, first thing I thought was, yep, I have a team of amazing women who could talk about this. I have a beautiful wife who could speak to women.
Let me just stop you for one quick second, because you keep mentioning that beautiful wife. And I bet you everybody keeps looking around here talking about, who is that? But it is no other than the one and only Nakeem Levy Pounds in the house. That's his beautiful wife.
That's my queen. You're making me blush up here. I just got lost in that. You said her name, and I went somewhere in my mind. Beautiful place. Yes, I could have pulled people from my team, but Nicole was like, no, we want you. I was like, wait, is this a setup? Like, you'll take me into this women's space? And just me? And then when she broke it down and said, no, we would like to have a male perspective. So I said, oh, okay, I'll do my best. So one of the things that Tracy and I talked about is that we have to become what it is that we are looking for, right? It has to do with the laws of attraction. So I have this beautiful queen, intellectual, strong woman, and that's who I always said that I wanted. But I had some years before I met her, and I was attracting a different type of woman. And so I had to go inside of myself, love thyself. I had to go inside of me to say, what is it about me that I keep attracting this woman that I'm saying that I don't want to attract? And so it took some soul searching. It took some work. It took some hard work. And I had to ask myself, what am I presenting? I want an intellectual woman. Am I an intellectual man? I want a queen. What attracts a queen? A king. So I had to say, am I that? At that time, I had to honestly say, in the mirror, nah, Marquise, you ain't that. You may present like that, but on the inside, that ain't who you are. And so I had to really do some work and put myself in those positions so that I can become that smart, intellectual person. To be a person who, when a woman sees me, says, that's my king. Not me defining myself as that. She told me that I was that, which was powerful. And so it's really about looking within, doing the inner work. That's what I had to do some inner work within myself. I had to look in and say, yeah, this is broken. This isn't working. This isn't pulling what it is that I'm saying that I want. So again, be what it is that you want. We have to. We have to go in and reconstruct and transform some things on the inside of us in order to pull those things towards us. Does that make sense?
But how can we at home just looking in the mirror, I don't like who I am, I'm not attracted to who I want, I keep getting the same deadbeats. Keep getting the bromios that ain't worth a quarter. All of that. How do I keep getting them? And they all look the same. How do I shift my mindset so I can quit getting them same deadbeats?
Yep, I hear you. You know what? And it's a struggle, and it's a process, because I had to go back to my family of origin. And going to school to become a marriage and family therapist was really helpful for me, because we had spent hours and hours just looking at our family systems. And really, we are all products of the homes that we grew up in. I grew up in a home of an alcoholic father. And for 15 years of my life, Daddy was a weekend drunk. So I was in the last 4 of the kids, and then the older 4, they had sense to leave the house when he got drunk every weekend. But he would drink all day Friday after he got off work Saturday, and then he would take us to church on Sunday. And then after he was coming down from his drunkenness, he played B.B. King and Solomon Burke all day Sunday and that's the way we lived for years and years and years. And then to add to that, Dad he had epilepsy. So I became the one that took care of him. I was the caregiver. I was the one that was the peacemaker. I was the one that stood between Mom and Daddy when they got into fights. I was the one that kept her from stabbing him a couple of times. I didn't realize that. But we'd been in car accidents with Dad, and at one church I was at once, I told him a story of Dad drinking, and back in the day, they didn't have seatbelts. We'd be in the car bouncing around, and we ended up in the cemetery once. And people actually thought it was funny. It's like, no, that ain't funny. But children, it's like, we experienced that kind of stuff. So all of that exposure to the drinking and so forth created in me a codependent. So I was the caregiver of Daddy. Whenever he would have a seizure, I would be the one that would tip up next to him, and I'd say, Daddy, can I help you? And I nurtured him into being. So my pattern was that when I looked for a man, I always looked for somebody that was sick. Look for somebody who didn't have it, somebody who needed me. Oh, that man needs me. And I would always subconsciously look, and so those are the men that are always drawn to me as the ones that need a woman, that need me, to make them feel good about themselves. Because I can make you feel real good. So that's always my struggle. And then when someone does come to me that has it all together, I don't know what to do with them. All right? Because that has been my pattern. So as I get older, it's getting better and better, and I'm meeting men that don't need me. And I was dating a man who actually died a couple of years ago, but he didn't want me to cook for him. He didn't want me to do nothing. I said, dang, it was crazy. But he didn't need me. He had been alone. He had his own house. He had everything. And it was really different to not be taking care of him and doing this and doing that. So look at your past. That's the nice thing about therapy. When you go in, you can sit with somebody, do a genogram, and map your life and where it's been and who were the players in the house, who, their drugs, their alcohol, all that kind of stuff, and get to see why you are the way you are. Because it was shaped and all created out of that family system.
And looking why we are who we are and think the way we think currently now. And what it made me think about is Sankofa. Sankofa means going back into the past and taking a look at everything that happened in the past so that we can know why we're in the state that we're in. The image of Sankofa is a bird with its head turned backwards, reaching for an egg that's on the bird's tail. The egg represents all that is good from the past. So the bird is reaching back to grab all that is good from the past to bring into the present. So in the future, you can go forward with all of the good in the past. But looking back also teaches us the mistakes that were made. Some of the things that are not so pretty, some of the things that we don't put in that best foot forward step, it's that left foot that we hold back until, well, it just kind of falls out. We kind of oftentimes don't really bring that foot forward. But it's really digging in. Where did Brother George go? spoken word artist. Thank you, brother, for blessing us with your poetry. You said in one of your poems, what kind of image do they project? I wrote that down, but I said change the they to you, to me. What type of image am I projecting? And that's what I was talking about before. Who am I? I'm a magnet, I'm attracting something to me. So what image am I projecting out in order to pull back? What is going to pull back into me with what it is that I'm projecting out? Nicole, you started out saying, we have a birthright. And that birthright is that we are important, valuable, and lovable. And I love what you said. Sometimes we lose that. Often we lose understanding what our birthright is with all of the things that we go through in life. Being African American in the United States is traumatic. I'm gonna say it again. Being an African American in the United States is traumatic. Have this diagnosis in that big thick book, the DSM-5, right? All of the diagnoses that you could possibly get. PTSD is one of them. Post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm gonna go back and change that. Post-traumatic slave disorder.
Wow.
Being passed down from generation to generation. I'm going to step out on a limb and say slavery never ended. So that trauma is continuing to happen over and over and over again. And so those are some of the ways that birthright gets buried with the images, with the messages that we are sent. The question, I think, was, so I'm not feeling that. Like, yeah, I get that, but I'm not feeling pretty. You said something, Nancy, you said, who told you that? Where is that message coming from? Who gave us that narrative? Being a teenager, so I'm from Arkansas. I'm a southern boy, country. I lost the accent a little while ago. But it's still in my bones, because that outside that we just came through, I don't like that. I know what cabin fever is for real now. Lived in Detroit, Michigan. So in Arkansas, it was segregated. Everything was black. Detroit, Michigan. Everything from the janitor at school to the mayor was black. And then we moved to Minnesota in Brooklyn Park in the 80s. Culture shock and culture shock. I didn't know what a Canadian geese was. I thought it was a big duck. I'm in class, I'm in my history class, and I see, I'm reading about their history of our history. Going so far back as slavery. And our history that's just a small portion that they created and pulled us into, but we have a rich history before and after that. And so I'm seeing caricatures in the history books of black men who are big and strong, but their heads are this big. So what message is that sending? That physically you have all of that, but up here, you ain't got nothing. I played basketball. I played football. I ran track. I did all of those things. When I went to the first school in the suburbs here in Minnesota, guess what they asked me? Do you play basketball? And I was like, I do. You play football? I do. Do you run track? Yeah. And I was excited about that, to be welcomed into those things. What I learned later is they also had a chess club. I love chess. They didn't ask me about that. Why? Because that's a head, that's intellect, that's thinking. So these messages were being sent to me. And so I literally had to counter that because I had begun to buy into and believe some of the messages that were coming my way. So here's what I did. As a junior high student, 7th grade, I was like, my favorite color is blue, but my favorite color became brown so that I could learn to love my skin. I have African lips and an African nose. And sometimes I wear a baseball cap and I pull it down low. Somebody asked me, "Are you Chinese?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." Well, maybe I need to do a DNA test. Maybe it's somewhere. But Blackanese, the other thing that I did was I was like, I have to learn to love me the way God created me. The term nappy was popular. So to counter that, I started to say, I have really tight, strong curls that you have to be strong to get through. So again, this internal work, this countering the narratives that are sent us, countering the messages that are sent to us. I began to read about my history, not the textbooks that I had in school, but I began to read about Malcolm X. I began to read about Nat Turner. That blew me away. I was like, where are the rest of the Nat Turners? I want to read about them. The slaves that were like, no, we ain't doing this no more. So I'm sorry, I could go on. I'll stop.
I just want to affirm what has been said thus far. We heard Nancy talking about the importance of going back, looking at the history in order to uncover where those messages came from, and then hearing it affirmed in what Marquisa shared. I want to affirm it in that a big part of the work, when I mentioned earlier, the credentials of doing my work, kind of like Ayana Von San, she talks about do your work. And part of that actually was having the humility to recognize, I thought I knew me, but let me get the support around that. And that is when I actually opened the door to getting support with a professional therapist who began to walk me through a process. And one of the things that I will say, and I feel like it's the best work you can ever do, it was an absolute game changer, because what it did is it walked me into the heart of what I call those core hurts. When you start to identify who said it, how, where, when you were this tall, there is something about it's a process. It takes you somewhere for a minute, but and it's hard sometimes to go in that painful place to go, this is a core hurt. For example, I'll share quickly. When I was growing up, this crown of fro was not celebrated. Okay, let's just say it for what it was. This hair was a core hurt for me because all the messages told me that I was not good enough like this. I happen to have a dad who was a hair designer at the time and, retired as that for many, many years. Some of you may know him, James Pillow. He's been known to do hair all over the Twin Cities. But the point is that I had an immediate route to say, Daddy, straighten my hair. And I started very young, Daddy, straighten my hair. Well, why would you want to do that? Because that's the way that I become accepted. And my mom will still tell the story about how when it would rain outside, I would cry at the front door because she'd say, why don't you want to go to school? I said, Mama, if I go to school, my hair's going to curl up and I'm going to have my fro and I'm going to be made fun of. So here's what I want to share with you. Two things came out of that core hurt. One was rejection. And so here I am, a 46-year-old woman, recognizing a core hurt of rejection where I can be literally in an office working with people and the door closes and I'm not invited to the meeting and all of a sudden I get all weirded out and think they talking something I should know. But here's the beautiful thing. When you do the work, you can go, oh, you know what? That's that core hurt that came from when I was, put out when I was just very young. That's not the truth of who I am. That's not really what they're doing to me. I'm free from that. So my point is that when you do the digging, it is freedom because you can disarm it. That is self-love. That has been the most incredible self-love that I have given myself as a gift. Now, I can wear this crown of glory and be proud because it no longer defines me. But I will tell you that, and then I'll tie this story up, it wasn't until I was at a cabin this summer, like just a few months back, when I happened to get the hair wet at the cabin and someone asked me to try some hair products from her salon, and my hair was, I said, okay, fine, I'll do this. And I couldn't wait to get home and straighten it. I couldn't wait, because after I got to go to work on Monday. So somehow a picture ended up on Facebook, and my coworker said, you better be wearing that for us. Oh my God, I didn't know you had hair like this. Okay, this has been under wrap up until like 3 months ago. I have a good friend, right, Audra, in the audience. None of my people know that this even exists. And I'm going to tell you the truth of the matter. I am talking about self-love, because here I am, and I have another business called the Inner Beauty Project, and I write for the column that's called Fashioning You Inside and Out. This is all about identity work.